It's December 1989. The bitter cold cuts through the air like a knife. We're in Palace Square, Bucharest, the heart of Romania's capital, and a growing crowd gathers in silence, bundled in coats, scarves, and fear. It's the middle of winter, and thousands have been dragged here from their offices, factories, and schools. Some have been standing for hours in sub-zero temperatures. Most don't even know why they were summoned. But all eyes are on the balcony of the Central Committee building. Everyone is waiting for one man. Nicolae Ceaușescu, Romania's supreme leader, self-proclaimed genius of the Carpathians, and dictator for more than 24 years. At first glance, it might look like just another state-sponsored gathering, another choreographed show of support for the regime. But something is different this time. The atmosphere is tense. The usual cheers of "Long live Ceaușescu" are missing. Behind the orchestrated display, something is brewing. Something irreversible. Only days earlier, in the western city of Timișoara, the first cracks in Ceaușescu's regime had begun to show. A local Protestant pastor named Laszlo Tokes had spoken out against the regime, criticizing the government's abuses and attacks on religious freedom. When the secret police, Securitate, tried to detain him, townspeople gathered around his church in protest. They weren't just defending a preacher. They were pushing back against decades of oppression. But the regime responded the only way it knew how, through violence. Ceaușescu ordered the army to intervene. Soldiers opened fire on unarmed demonstrators. Bodies fell in the streets. Hundreds died. But instead of ending the revolt, the bloodshed spread it. Soon, flames of protest ignited across the nation. Arad, Sibiu, Cluj, Brașov, and finally, Bucharest. For the first time in decades, Romanians realized the regime was vulnerable. The illusion of Ceaușescu's invincibility had cracked. And now, in Palace Square, Ceaușescu is about to walk into his own downfall, broadcast live on national television. In a desperate effort to show control, Ceaușescu calls for a massive pro-government rally. The plan is simple: fill the square with supporters, pump in crowd noise, and let the cameras roll. Let the world see that the Romanian people still love their leader. But what unfolds is anything but that. Nicolae steps onto the balcony beside his wife, Elena Ceaușescu, who was just as feared, just as hated. They wave to the crowd as massive speakers blast pre-recorded applause. For a moment, it works. The illusion holds. But then, something goes wrong. As Ceaușescu begins his speech, small groups in the back of the crowd start to boo. Then whistles. Then shouting. A few seconds later, screams. It wasn't on the script. It wasn't on the tape. Ceaușescu's face shifts from confidence to confusion. "What's going on?" he mutters. Elena leans in, visibly agitated. "They're coming inside," someone yells. His security team, sensing the danger, scrambles. Off camera, protesters are breaking through barriers, pushing past guards, and heading straight toward the building. Live on television, the chaos is starting to show, just barely, but enough. The cameraman, following orders, tilts the lens skyward to avoid showing the crowd losing control. But it's too late. The nation is watching. On the balcony, Nicolae and Elena begin shouting at the demonstrators, trying to restore order. But no one listens. The spell is broken. This isn't just a failed speech, it's the beginning of the end. Even as Ceaușescu offers last-minute promises, wage increases, better pensions, it falls on deaf ears. The crowd is no longer afraid. The cheers are gone, replaced by the chants of "freedom" and "down with Ceaușescu." That night, as the protests spread through Bucharest, the regime does what it's always done, responds with tanks and bullets. The military opens fire on demonstrators. The Securitate begins rounding up anyone seen shouting or throwing stones. Snipers are deployed on rooftops. By dawn, the streets of Bucharest are stained red. The regime turns high-pressure hoses on the streets, not to clean, but to wash away the blood. And yet, it still isn't enough. The people keep coming. Reports start to flood in. Workers from massive factories on the city's outskirts are abandoning their machines and marching toward the city. Entire battalions of soldiers begin to defect, openly siding with the revolution. By the next morning, the writing is on the wall. Inside the Communist Party headquarters, Ceaușescu holds a final emergency meeting. The senior leadership is paralyzed. Outside, hundreds of thousands now encircle the building. They're climbing fences, breaking windows, storming the halls. With just minutes to spare, Ceaușescu orders a helicopter to the roof. Bodyguards carry him and Elena to the aircraft. Alongside them are 2 aides and 2 guards. They lift off just as protesters breach the final barricades. But they're not safe. The helicopter flies north to Ceaușescu's private estate in Snagov, where he begs for military reinforcements. His calls are met with silence. No one is coming. No one is loyal anymore. He orders the pilot to take off again, this time heading west, toward the town of Titu, hoping to reach a garrison he believes is still under his control. Mid-flight, the radio crackles. All unauthorized flights will be shot down. The pilot is forced to land. They touch down on a quiet road between Bucharest and Targovist. Now fugitives, the Ceaușescus hijack a car driven by a bicycle repairman. He drives them toward the nearby town, but along the way, the car radio announces breaking news: the regime has collapsed. Bucharest is free. The revolution has succeeded. The dictator is stunned. The mechanic, sympathetic but cautious, offers to hide them at an agricultural research institute. Once there, the director locks them in a room and tips off the police. They are finally arrested and transferred to a military base. The new Romanian leadership, hurried and chaotic, decides the dictator must be dealt with swiftly. The next day, a special tribunal is created. There will be no drawn-out trial, no appeal, no mercy. In a small barracks room, Nicolae and Elena face a panel of judges and prosecutors. They are accused of genocide, theft, sabotage, and betrayal of the Romanian people. Nicolae dismisses the court. This is a mockery, an illegal trial. I do not recognize it. But the court proceeds. The entire trial lasts just under an hour. Both are found guilty. Both are sentenced to death. Execution immediate. Nicolae pleads to die alongside his wife. The guards agree. When ropes are brought to tie their hands, they resist. "We're not going to run," Elena insists. "There's no need for this." Their protests are ignored. They're led into the courtyard and placed against a concrete wall. A soldier raises his camera. Another lines up the firing squad. Elena screams at the soldiers in fury. Nicolae begins to sing quietly the first line of the Internationale, the anthem of socialist revolution. Then, gunshots. Seconds later, the Ceaușescus lie lifeless against the wall. Their execution, recorded in grainy footage, was broadcast the next day on Romanian television. The bodies were shown publicly to prove that the dictatorship was finally over. Just months later, Romania held its first democratic elections in over 50 years. Over the next 2 decades, it would join NATO, become a member of the European Union, and start the long, painful process of rebuilding. Today, the fall of Ceaușescu is remembered not just as the end of a dictatorship, but as a turning point for a nation reclaiming its voice after decades of silence.